Ops 71 through 80, G7, the latest expansion, launched in October 2025 into Star Trek Fleet Command. This is your basic drill down guide into are you ready, what you need to do to prepare, what G7 looks like for a player. It's long, it's doozy. The first thing I'm doing is show you the trailer of when you enter G7. It looks brilliant, and then we'll dive straight into talking about the good, the bad, and the ugly from G7 early on in its generation.
Every step, every decision you have made has brought you here, at the edge of the galaxy, in a place hidden from the factions, where the rules no longer apply. A place where pioneers and titans collide. A tear has opened, and what comes through will change everything. Some seek shelter, others bring only destruction. This place will test us all. But what if I told you that at the brink of adversity and the unknown, I offer you unity, alliance, being the one to chart the way and forge the future for all who follow. This is your chance to assert dominance, to shape the frontier through force, strategy, and influence. Your chance to rise, expand your reach, and carve your place among the stars. Welcome to the margins, Commander.
Okay, so first off, I've got to give props to Scopely. That was a great introduction video. I love to see those. I love the cinematic elements of it. But what we're really here to talk about is the gameplay. Now, I'm going to throw an initial caveat out here that I'm recording this just a week after launch of G7. So if you're watching this in the future, if you're watching this during 2026 or later on, obviously things may have changed. Obviously, as things change majorly, we will produce later and later update videos, and we'll create a G7 bucket for videos, a playlist, so that obviously as things change, you can be kept up to date. But we've got lots and lots to dive into, and I want to answer one key question. That key question is, should you push into Ops 71? Should you move into G7 or should you sit at 70? That basic camping versus non-camping versus sit and catch up or progress forward and then catch up. That basic rationale that everybody has at the start of a generation where you've got a decision to make. I'm going to give you my thoughts on it, but ultimately that decision has to be yours. You have to make that decision for yourself. I'm going to show you my experiences. I'm going to show you some basics of my account so that you know where I'm at. I'm going to tell you what I think that you are going to need to be able to progress. And basically just take it from there. I think the first thing to start with, obviously the thing that everybody's interested in is looking at the G6 ships. So we're going to take a quick look in the shipyard, and we're going to take a quick look at what those ships are, because obviously if you are not at the upper echelons of G6, you won't be able to see these. So we have a new minor. We've basically got 10 ships added to the game. We've got 3 uncommons, 3 rares, 3 epics, and 1 independent minor. The independent minor, which is for shipyard level 71. This is like your Nova in G5, your Selkie in G6, your all-purpose minor. You've then got the uncommons, which for the Federation, you've got the Socrates, you've got the Boreth, and you've got the Prefortis for the Romulans. The Romulan ones here looks a little bit like a paper aeroplane, if you ask me. Decent artwork, but obviously it looks a little bit strange. And then you've got the Borketh, which I think they all look, the Boreth, all the Klingon ships have looked very, very similar, I think, for the last couple of generations. Just my little bit of feedback on that, and that's those. You've then got the rare ships, so starting with the Federation again, you've got the Stargazer. You've got the Stargazer in there. It is the refit Stargazer. It's not the old original Captain Picard one. It is the new one. I think that looks absolutely marvellous. You've then got the IKS Akvo, which again just looks like a STFC Klingon ship. I think a lot of them look very, very similar. So you've got that one in there. And then you've got the Snakehead for the Romulans. Again, looking very, very small. Not bad on the artwork, but it just looks tiny again, doesn't it? It just looks small. And you've got the 3 epics. So starting with the Federation, you've got the USS Enterprise M414. M414, Maya, anyone? Obviously, who's your AI that's been talking to you since day one in the game? Who's your assistant in your station? The US Enterprise. This is a STFC creation, the M414. It's not from Canon. Looks pretty sick. Look at the numbers on these. 3 trillion in power. Out the box, absolutely incredible. And then the Klingon one, again, believe it or not, looks like one of those Klingon ships. It's like a Klingon ship, and you've got the Grethor for that. And then for the Romulans, you have got the Admonition, which again, strange looking ship. The Romulans aren't my favourite looking of ships, if I'm being honest, in these, just to throw a bit in there. But they are the 9 ships that have been released for G7. Big point to note, there is no, at the moment, no G7 miners for the factions. Now, people may not remember this, but the G5 miners actually got added in midway through with the G5 launch. So maybe those miners will rear their heads in the future, potentially. But at the moment, at launch, we have only got those 7 ships. Now, if you're watching this and obviously thinking I'm not going to be in G7 for a long, long time, just treat this as a little bit of education, a little bit of interest, a little bit of something that you're going to just watch and see what's potentially holding in your future. Now, one thing that G7 has changed. Now, if you remember when we had G3, we had the G3 spaces. We then moved into G4 spaces, which was just the upper part, so just extended the original G3 space. We then had the G5 spaces, like this one, and then we had the G6 spaces, which is here. What we don't get for G7 is G7 space in terms of individual factions. We have new areas. So this is called the margins. So this big nice new cluster here, which is just off here to the east side of Romulan G6 space, you have got the margin space. And now in these margin space, they do vary, as you would imagine, all the way from level 70 systems. They obviously start off at a relatively low warp range, lower than the highest G6 systems, which is interesting, all the way up to obviously the level 80 systems in the middle there that you've got. But you'll notice that there are 3 entry points into something called the Veil. Now this is super interesting and great tech. So these systems just work like everything else. It's on your server. You can go, there's ships there to mine, there's nodes there to mine, there's hostiles there to kill. And as you can see, because they don't have individual spaces, obviously there are multiple factions within each system. So if you are going to go out rep grinding in these systems, you need to make sure you're paying attention to which hostiles that you are hitting and make sure you go into a system that you can do that in. But if we go through the entry points, and the entry points labelled A, B and C are at different levels. So you've got a 71 level there, you've got a 78 level there, and then entrance C down here is in a level 74 system, which requires a relatively high warp to be able to access these other areas of space. To even get to up here to these systems, you need like warp 3000, which is insane. But by clicking into these, I think this is super interesting and great tech. Clicking in takes you to a brand new space. Now, it looks very similar to the old space. It's like a mirror of what we was on. We've passed through that portal and come to the other side. Notice there is nothing else around this. Yeah, nothing else around this. So we're not still in our galaxy. We are now in like a regional base of space. Now, this is super interesting because if I go into a system that I'm already in here with my Crenshaw, you can see that this is actually occupied. That's a bad system to choose because there was nobody in it. If we pop into here with my Discovery, okay, we can see here that this is a G7 gas mining system. But look at this. If we zoom in, we can see I am on server 135. Yeah, server 135. But we can see here, so Vist here, who's in my alliance, he's purple, same as normal. There are multiple other servers able to mine within this space. So we are sharing this with a group of other servers that we can just access. Now, it's not like incursions where all your ships get recalled when you move servers, or arenas when you move into the arena that you lose all of your mining prowess and everything that you've done. You've got to have all your ships back in base. It's not like that. You can see I've got ships mining, I've got ships out in space, and I just crossed over to the shared region of space for me to be able to see all these systems. It's like the Wild West in here. It's like going back to the old G2 days where obviously there's no rowing here, your ROE doesn't apply if you've got rules of engagement specifically on your server. What you do in here is basically indefendable. You can do pretty much whatever that you like in here, and pending how aggressive the sets of servers are that you share with may determine how difficult it is for you to mine and get your dailies and all those bits and pieces done here. But I think this is a fantastic new mechanic whereby we have the veil, and when we enter it, we can now play in all these systems, which gives us loads of different opportunities for PvP gameplay, PvE gameplay, mining. There's loads of extra things that have been brought in with the addition of the veil. I think it's a fantastic addition to the game. I think it's great technology, and it does work pretty well. And another really interesting thing for here, we've now got a new tab which is accessible to all. We've now got Veil Chat. So all of your servers that are within your Veil region, so all of the servers that you can play within the Veil, are now on one individual chat. You can chat to people from other servers from all over the place. Let's have a look at Abdi here. So if we look at Abdi, we can see that Abdi is in the Alliance IRS. And they're on totally different servers to us. Server 125. So you can chat to these people. I think it adds an extra layer of communication that we've asked for a long time. And I think that's a really nice thing to say. And the other thing, while you're getting used to these systems, remember this button down here that people probably hardly ever press. You have it on default view, you can just see the factions and things that are within that system. But you can obviously change this to hazards. There's no hazards in G7. So anybody that's in G6 that's been working really hard on hazard resistance, there are no hazards in G7. You can change it to the hostile view, so you can see what levels are in there and obviously what types. So in this one, for example, there's battleships and interceptors, battleships and explorers, etc. But one of the key ones for me is the mining tab. Changing it to mining so you can see where the G7 gas is, where the dilithium pasteel nodes are, which may actually be a thing to mine again. Don't quote me on this. They may actually be a thing that you want to start mining tritanium, especially because tritanium, I'm telling you now, once you start getting up into the upper echelons of your G6 and into early G7, wanting to get your ships upgraded and things, tritanium really is a bottleneck. It's absolutely huge. So you might want to decide that you want to mine it. And that being said, obviously the economy in general has scaled exponentially. It's pretty massive, if I'm being 100% honest with you. So like if you want to look at the cost of a building, so this one here is one of your standard buildings. This is your shipyard, taking it from 69 to 70, 3.6 million Sigma pasteel, which, I mean, it is still a considerable amount of Sigma pasteel. If we wanted to look at taking the academy from 70 to 71, 46 million. It's what, 13, 14, 15x in terms of the costs. So the Sigma resource economy really has increased with this. They've added a couple of things. Obviously they've increased the mining speed nodes that are within the veil, which obviously is nice if you do want to go and mine it, but also they've made a significant improvement to generators. If we look at the generators here, and this one here that's going from 70 to 71, generators always being useless before, they've actually got some, in inverted commas, they've actually got some use now. Rather than it producing 80 in an hour, it now produces 1,500 in an hour. The storage has gone from 2250 to 46,000. Okay, do you know what I mean? They're not insubstantial bonuses for actually upgrading your generators to 71. So there's an argument, especially with tritanium ones, which I've said, which I think is going to be a very huge bottleneck at the start, because you're still wanting to work on your G6 ships, which are really expensive. You may decide that you want to actually work on getting your generators all the way up. That's just something for you to consider, working on those, rather than just leaving them sat in the doldrums in the 50s and 60s. It may be something that you decide that you want to prioritize to increase your output there of base Sigma resources. The other change to the Sigma economy is faction credits. So obviously since day one, we've had standard faction credits. We've been able to come and just get those. They're gone for G7. G7 now use a brand new resource. They now use Sigma faction credits, which you earn in exactly the same way. So you earn them by doing your dailies from events and other bits and pieces. But you can see here you've got Sigma faction credits for all three of the main factions. You can see here in just over a week of being in G7, I've managed to amass about 25,000 Federation, 20-odd thousand of each of the Klingon ones. But when I show you the cost of the ships, starting to acquire these as quickly as possible is going to be something that's going to really help you in the long term. And that's something that comes back to when I'm thinking, do you sit at 70 or do you move your way up to 71? Might be something that you decide to take on board whilst you're looking at it. But that Sigma credit cost is absolutely massive. Before we move away from the total ships and the economy and things, I'm just going to quickly pull up a chart that shows you the cost of all of the G7 ships in relation to faction credits, because that's going to bleed nicely into when we start talking about dailies and other bits and pieces that change when you hit G7. So these are the costs. So we can see here now these are all in Sigma faction credits. As you can see, we've got the beautiful images on the side there as well. So the Aphelion, which is the G7 independent miner, then you've got the uncommons, the rares, and the epics. How many blueprints they take? These are standard 150, 150, then 350, 650. The cost for each blueprint, how much they actually cost you, the total cost in Sigma faction credits, and the reputation required to actually unlock these. And yes, that is a T for trillion in terms of reputation. The reputation levels are absolutely massive, and we'll show you those in a second. But 750,000 faction credits to unlock the Aphelion, and we are under the impression, now this will probably be known if you're watching this in the future, is that you cannot, as you could with the previous faction credits, convert those Sigma faction credits for Latinum. That is a huge thing, which again tells you that where you need to be if you're planning to make a push on G7, you need to be acquiring those faction credits as early as physically possible. It really will help you. Now, while we're talking about reputation, let's talk about how that increases. We all know that the previous lock was at Hero 500 billion. That was the lock that you could get to. That was the G6 lock in order for you to be able to unlock your G6 epic ships. These are the new reputation levels and what you unlock at each particular level. You can see that first jump. Now, they're all called Prestige, but they are all the way up from Prestige 1 up to Prestige 6, and they are at 9 trillion, 25 trillion. You can see the numbers, all the way up to 450 trillion. Now, your reputation will not lock, same with every generation that we've had, until 450 trillion. Now, I'm stressing these numbers because they are so massive. They are so massive, 450 trillion. The fact that it's so big, in my opinion, at the moment, kind of makes dual or triple grinding, which was in theory available with the MU all the way up to 500 billion, it's not a thing. At the moment, with current research, current abilities, the ability to reputation grind, double or triple rep grinding is not a thing that you will be able to do sustainably up to 450 trillion. You need to pick a faction. This is how the game was designed in day one, before locks were even a thing back at the start of this game 7 years ago. You pick your route. You choose which direction you want to go in. You choose which faction you are wanting to actually progress through. I've chose Federation because I like the look of all three of the Federation ships, and I can say I kind of belated on the Klingon and the Romulan ones in terms of looks, because when we look at the ships, their firing patterns are relatively even, they're relatively equal. There's none that look like they are massively outpowering with regards to a particular faction. So it all goes down to your personal preference. Choose one and ride with it. Choose a faction and ride with it is my opinion, and my advice to you in terms of reputation, because these locks are massive. And you can see you get the 71 miner at 9 trillion, and you need to get to 25 trillion before you hit Ops 73. But I'm going to tell you my path to 73. As you know, I am a 71, and I'll put a massive thank you out there to Jules Verne, Blue Mandalorian Quiz, all the other guys that helped put all these sheets together. And this is part of the G7 presentation that Jules has presented. It's absolutely brilliant. There's loads of information within this pack, and like I say, you can find that on our Discord. Link to that is in the description of the video down below. And if you are enjoying this video, you're enjoying the insight of the insights that we're trying to give you on G7, please subscribe to the channel, drop a comment down below, and obviously like the video as well if you like it. That would be absolutely amazing. Let's move on. I'm going to show you one little gripe now, one little gripe that does irritate me, and that's with Syndicate. With Syndicate prior to this expansion, every time you went up a generation, you got an increase in buff. You click on any buff that's got a little eye on there, you'll be able to see that between 10 and 19, it was 2%, 29 to 29, 3%. As you move up in generation ops level, you got a buff. At the moment, that's not happening with G7. All of the G6 buffs have just been carried across to G7. I hope this changes. This feedback has been given to Scopely, and I hope that they do act on that feedback so that we actually start to get some sort of boost from that. But whilst I'm in Syndicate, I'm going to talk to you about the importance of this particular node here. Now, it's not just on 54. There's one here at 56. It's the same jump. The bonus loyalty chest rewards for gas, crystal, and ore. If there is one reason to progress your Syndicate, there are loads of reasons, but if there's one reason to do it, that bonus loyalty chest reward is absolutely massive. You got another one there at 59 as you're working up towards the upper echelons, and I think there's one more there, yeah, there at 64. So there's loads. Now, if you are close to the next rep level that's got one of those unlocks in, remember, save your 7 and 30-day chests until you get to that point. However, there is a caveat now to 7 and 30-day chests with G7. And that's what we're going to talk about now. We're going to talk about when to jump up, when are you ready to jump up. Now, in terms of a few things that you need to focus on and that you need to think about, the first one for me is research. Okay. Now, in order for you to even start participating in G7 research, the only expansion to research in G7 at the moment is in the combat tree. Now, the combat tree, you go all the way back past your G6 research. Okay, you can see that the new G7 research starts here, just after you've got the old little faction section here. Once you get past that, you've got here which mentions surges. Okay, now these are not surge specific. The surge is a mechanic that I'm going to explain to you in a few moments, but these are the researches that you start to unlock at Ops 71. All the first nodes of these are available at Ops 71. They're all prerequisites for each other. Okay, because you cannot start moving up here to the other ones until Ops 72. Okay, so you will only be able to do the first level. There are heavy gates in these, like for example, to get to the upper, to finish some of these nodes off, you actually need to be Ops 80. Okay, so you need to basically finish out the whole of the G7, so it's a slow roll on getting these researches updated, but these researches are absolutely incredible. I mean, even look at this one, damage. We slag damage bonuses off all the time because you add 20% here and 50 and 100% there. It doesn't move the needle. These buffs do. Okay, these buffs do in pretty much every single area. A 3000% damage boost, you will notice that. Now, it's not the most groundbreaking of these researches, but a 3000% damage bonus at level 1 will increase it, and that node goes all the way up to 15,000. You've got hull starting at 3000, going up to 20,000 hull bonus. You've got shield starting at 3000% bonus, going up to a 20,000 bonus. These are massive. Isolytic damage, increased isolytic damage for G6 plus ships. Really pay attention to it. G6 plus. That means that your G6 epics, which are key and so important to your progression into G7. They are so important to your progression into G7. The fact that these researches do count for that, these are not researches to be ignored at all. Isolytic damage, 100% isolytic damage bonus for your G6 plus ship. It doesn't specify where. This is just a base increase, going all the way up to a 500% isolytic damage bonus. These are absolutely massive. Critical hit damage starting at 50%, going up to 500%. Remember the way that critical hit damage works, these are in essence net increases that you're then getting isolytic damage on top of. These are massive, massive, massive bonuses, and better than any prime, any FT, any fleet commander, anything that's ever released into the game. These researches are going to be so impactful for you. There is a caveat, because you want to be able to participate in these. In order to do these, you need to participate in the surges, which are the new area of space. Okay, the new area of space, which is just above territory. There is a brand new area which looks like a load of wavy lines. Above territory space, it's here. These have to be started by Ops 71 players. If you'd like to see a specific video about surges, drop me a note down in the comments. I'm more than happy to make one explaining the details of that. But by participating in surges, which only Ops 71 plus are able to start, but then all of your alliance are able to then participate and join and get rewards, you then earn a currency, and that currency, you come over to your refinery, you exchange your primord, you exchange these tokens, your surge fragments that you get by participating, into primordial plasma, which you then use to complete that research. Very similar to like the cosmic particles and the rhodinium, all that sort of thing. Those particles, this is the G7 particle, but that research is so potent. But remember I said that there was a problem. The problem was not the right word. If you are not completely up to date on your G6 research, okay, you cannot even start the very first node. You notice that all of my G7 research was blanked out. Surge damage requires me to get to level 8 of isolytic firepower. Yeah, R&D 71, pretty standard. I'm about 2 buildings away from that. That's not a major issue. This is the problem. Isolytic firepower level 8. Isolytic firepower level 8. You can see here, I'm at level 1. I was able to complete everything I needed to in G6 without any problems. And most of my researches for G6 are still sat at level 1. Loads of these. Okay, I've got to get all the way to level 8. And if I just click through these, you can see the sheer amount of research that I need to do. Basically, I need to max out this tree before I can even start working on this really groundbreaking surge research. So do not ignore your G6 research before you move up. However, I'm going to tell you again that a quick sneak peek here. Don't let not being up to date on that research, ready to start doing these. Don't let that hold you back. I'm going to talk about whether you go 60, whether you go 71 or stay 70. I'm going to give you my opinion on that in a second. But just to put it in perspective, look at where my researches are. Loads and loads of level 1s, a few level 2s, a couple of level 3s in there, level 4, level 5, a little bit earlier doors. I'm going to quickly show you on Spox Club what I need to spend to be able to complete that research to even start it. I'm going to pull that up now. Isotic firepower. So I'm currently level 1. I need to get it to level 8 to be able to start doing my surge research. If I expand all, this is going to scare you. Expand all, everything without a check mark are researches that I need to do. And look at this scroll bar. It's so small. I've got all that research to do, which is using G6 materials, which is using Sigma speedups to be able to get through it quickly. I've got to get through all of that research before I even start working on that really important surge research, which is going to make G7 so much better for you. So if you are 66, 67, 68, don't sit on that research. Start working on it. And even the costs, some of the costs aren't even the major issue here. Do you know what I mean? Look at this. I need another 2 million Sigma trip. Get that in a few days. Uncommon, 151,000. Looks ridiculous. I'll show you why it's not going to be in a second, because I've moved to 71. Bit of rare ore, a chunk there of rare gas, but again, just look at the numbers, 31,000 and 32,000 rare crystal. It's not necessarily the materials or the resources that I'm concerned about. It's 3 years, 201 days worth of research. Yes, you're going to be able to take about 20% off that with helps from your alliance. 20% off it. It's not a great deal, is it? It's like, what is that, 1,000, 1,100 days? Might be able to get 200 days off with helps. 800 days worth of research. 800 days worth of research. 800 days times 1.5 million. I need 1.2 billion latinum just to speed up the research. The speed ups are so sparse, and I've got so many nodes to do that it's going to be so important for me to start cracking on with those. But I'm going to explain to you why that's something you need to be aware of, but is not a huge problem. Because when I talk about my decision to go to 71 as opposed to going to 70, I'm going to explain to you why that's not a major problem. Okay, so you can say forearmed is 4-1. I'm going to show you some dailies stuff now as well. So obviously my dailies are now in the G7 realm, and as I mentioned, you are being paid out Sigma faction credits. Look at the reputation though, 21 billion in Federation just by doing the small daily, which is basically just killing 10 hostiles of the other two factions. And I'm going Federation, as I mentioned to you before. Looking at the other dailies, obviously we have a larger hostile daily, which requires you to earn 50 points. It's the exact same mechanic as G6, whereby if you kill the same level as you, you get 1 point towards your dailies. And for every level above your ops level, so if I kill a 72, I get 2 additional points. If I kill a 73, then I would then get an extra 4 points, because that's 2 levels above my current ops grade. But I'm going to explain to you why it's really difficult. But that top one there is paying you out more Klingon credits and 42 billion. Now mining. Okay, mining, this is a difficult one. And the other thing to point of note is read these carefully, because the large daily requires you to be killing hostiles within the Veil. The smaller one, you can see it here for my Romulan, requires you to kill them anywhere. So you can kill them in Origins. You can even go and kill these in G6 space should you want to. You can go and find and hunt out the 71s, and you can do this daily in standard space. Whereas the big daily, which is the one that's paying out the bigger chunk of reputation and faction credits, you need to be killing within the Veil, so you need to go out there to do that. And 50 points is difficult to do, difficult to come by. But obviously I'm going to show you my progression in a second with that. The mining dailies, very similar format. You need to mine a 1.25 million G7. At the moment, my miner, which I'll show you, is mining at about 400,000-ish an hour without a full gas mining crew on there, 365 an hour. Basically, I just leave it, wait for it to fill up, because it's in the Veil. If it goes over cargo, it's going to get hit. So you've got to watch for over cargo that you may have gotten away from a little bit on your server that might have become a little bit more lax. The Veil nodes are very sparse. There is not enough. I'm telling you now, there's not enough Veil nodes. And I think some of that is partially intentional to make sure that people do PvP and to make it a little bit more of the Wild West. But you can do your small daily, which again is paying out 21 billion, again the same, some faction credits. and obviously some raw materials as well. But the big daily requires you to mine the gas in the Vale. So obviously by mining gas in the Vale, it also counts towards your smaller daily as well. So I always try and do this one because again, this is paying out the 42 billion reputation and the larger chunk of faction credits as well. So those dailies are really, really tough. Now this is something you've got to be prepared to do, because for me, your minimum are you've got to be doing your dailies for mining, for the reputation, to make any meaningful progress. Plus you've got to be doing your small daily, which, like I said, you can do in G6 space, you can do anywhere. So even if you are not capable of destroying the new hostiles, you can still make progress, providing you've got a miner, okay, that can reach the system. So this level 72 system, if I just quickly swap this to a ship that will not have the warp range to be able to reach, I'll quickly show you what the warp range is on being able to mine in the Vale, because it'll probably be lower than you think. It's only 1600. Okay, so 1600. So my tier 7, tier 8 G6 miner will be able to reach there. Remember, we do have other tools at our disposal. We've got the Discovery. Now, I want to mention this because the Discovery becomes one of your best friends. Now, the warp times aren't awful. Like my cube gets up here in 6 minutes. It's not atrocious. Obviously, my disco can get me there in 10 seconds. It's really quick. Send the disco in and then obviously jump your warship in there if you need to. But you go through mycelium like nobody's business. In just over 10 days. 10 days. It's not even that, what is it? 7 days I've been in G7. I've currently spent 150,000 mycelium going and doing my dailies and getting stuff quicker to nodes and jumping to nodes and things. Obviously, if you've got a bit more time, you can just warp it, sit it in the system and wait and do it that way. But mycelium is your friend. Every opportunity you have to get mycelium, whether that's from Alliance tournaments, whether that's from event stores, doing your daft weekly disco event on a Sunday to get 5,000 mycelium, you need to do it. Okay, you run out of mycelium, you are then an absolute slave to warp times. You are a slave to warp times, and you will struggle to be able to do anything quickly. Okay, so any opportunity you get to get mycelium, you need to grab every single last little sliver of it. Now, staying on dailies. Now, remember that I told you that you can kill 71s and you're going to be able to get one of the 1 point, kill 72s. I'll be able to get 3 points. So you're saying, well, just hit the 72s, right? That sounds like the right way to go. That sounds like the easiest thing to do. Well, the crew that I'm using, which is my most optimum crew, trust me, I've tried hundreds, and I'm going to show you this crew in a second, okay? If I try and hit a 72, I did it for you just for science, I cannot kill one level 72 ship with my crew that does the best against the level 71s. It wipes me out. I take out all of its shields and probably, 15% of its hull? Not even close. Not even close. And this is with a tier 13 Crensher. I think for you to be able to hit reasonably with relative research, for you to be able to hit these hostiles up here, you need about a minimum of a tier 11 G6 Epic to be able to take out these hostiles. Around tier 10 might be able to do it if you've got really good research, but tier 11 to be able to start killing even one of these hostiles. So I couldn't do anything to a 72. This is what I do to a 71. So we kill it, and you can see here it takes out about 15%. I can kill 5 generally, sometimes only 4 if I get bad RNG. I can kill about 5 level 71s per hull with my tier 13 Crensher, and this is the best crew that I've been able to come up with for my crew. And I've tried loads of different combinations that people have sent me, and remember, what works for me won't work for you, what works for Bill won't work for Ben, what works for Ross won't work for Joey. Do you know what I mean? Friends reference there. Do you know what I mean? What works for Sheldon won't work for Leonard, for you younger people. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't work like that. You've got to find the crew that works the best for you. But I can come out here, I can kill 5. My strategy for doing my dailies at the moment, I come up here, I kill the 5 hostiles that I'm able to kill. Is that 4 or 5 that I've done? I've done 4. I might not squeeze the 5th one out. Use your buffs. So I'll use the ship abilities, which obviously you can unlock with hazard particles. Use a cloak. We might die to that one. Yeah, we died. So we only got 4 that run. Use the little buffs that you've got. Think about using Cerritos if you're a little bit more limited on time. Warp that in. But remember, that's using more mycelium because it won't reach here potentially natively. In fact, it will. You just got to warp it in there and get it there. And then I send it back. I warp it back, and I know I've got 5 minutes to go and do something else. And when I come back, it's sat in the system. I can go and kill some more hostiles. But if I'm killing 4 to 5 a run, if we average that at 4, that means it's going to take me between about 12 to 13 runs per day. 12 to 13 runs today for me to do my big daily. Okay, and you might think, well, that's not worth it for the extra 42 billion rep. I'll just ride it. There's one other caveat that you need to factor in, and that is one more daily, which is your hostile harbinger daily. Your hostile harbinger daily here, and 50 points by killing hostiles in the Vale. Any hostile works on the same mechanic. 1 point for your ops level, then plus 2 points for every level you hit over your ops level. But this pays out Vale shards. Veil shards are what you need. You need 100 of these to be able to start one of the surges that I mentioned earlier, to then be able to start getting the particles to start working on that research. So what you want to be doing is you want to be doing this daily as often as you physically can. With the disco, I can do my dailies in about 8 minutes. Going 8 to 10 minutes. Going in, killing 5 hostiles, jump back. 5 hostiles, jump back. It takes me about 8 to 10 minutes. If I warp there, it can take me 40, 45 minutes whilst I'm doing other things in the game. That's the time it takes. You need to decide before you make the jump, are you prepared to spend that amount of time doing what you need to do? You need to factor that in. Now, I want to show you my crew, okay? I want to show you my crew. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to come back and I'm going to bring it back and I'm going to pull my crew up and explain it to you. So here it is. This is the best crew for me at my research with my ship, so it's something for you to try. Now, you may want to try a couple of different variants to this. So I've got Janeway's Captain affecting shield mitigation, obviously with her Captain's ability, so making sure that more of the damage is going to shields. Okay, it's a key part of this. More damage is going to shields and away from my hull, which is the bit that eventually kills me, and obviously an isolated damage at the bottom. My Janeway is rank 5. Suda, who remembers him? So Suda, as a sidecar officer, repairs 24% of hull damage taken from the previous round whilst fighting hostiles. So any damage I take, I get a quarter of that back every single round. You need to max this guy. Now you can do that. I'm going to show you in a second. Seska, she does exactly the same, but for shields. So she's currently at tier 4 out of 5. She's repairing 25% of my shields every single round. So whatever damage I take, I'm currently getting 24% of my hull back, 25% of my shields back just from the bridge. I've got Pick Hugh also repairing some of my hull repairs. So another 20%, massive. If you can get this guy to rank 5, he's going to be massive for your game. You want to max him out. And let's talk about sourcing these really key officers. You've got Joachim, which if you've engaged in the augment loop is one of the easiest, quickest officers to max, providing that you can obviously grind the rep. Once you get to 60 million rep, being able to get to this guy, 60 million augment reputation, that is. I did a full video on getting 60 million augment reputation and then what to do to be able to farm this guy and get him maxed. I maxed him out in about 3 days, and that was with very, very limited effort. Fantastic, great loop, really, really easy. Joachim giving me my isolatic defense down below deck, because they do throw hefty amounts of that. And then you've got the 3 standard states. So we've got morale, we've got burning, and we've got hull breach, obviously for additional damage output, and obviously all the bits and pieces we get from artifacts and things for those. And then we've got Wrath of Khan Carol below deck, which again, she is like an additional part of Janeway, making more damage go to shields rather than hull. The whole point of this is survivability coupled in with damage output. They don't fire a great deal of damage at you, okay? But what they do, they don't have a great deal amount of shields. They do fire big damage, so you want to be repairing as much of that damage as you physically can. Before I went to tier 13, I had 1 less officer slot, and the best crew for me was actually this. I ran Strange New Worlds and Benga. So I used a Butcher of Decor, which was giving me an increase in my mitigation stats based on my officer health stats. And then my below deck for him was giving me increasing my shield health points every round by 15%, a boost to shields. Okay, that was the best crew for me when I was at tier 12. At tier 13, that didn't work as well as the crew I've just shown you with Janeway. Now, sourcing some of those officers. So Pick Hugh. Pick Hugh is huge, okay, for obviously that additional hull repair. You grind that guy out. You can get him every single day by utilising your refinery. and it's going back a fair few loops. It's going to the NX01 stuff. So NX01, you can get this claim here every single day. It costs 175 Epic Expo credits, which means that you want to be making sure you're doing your Zindy grinds to be able to make sure you've got enough credits to be able to pull this chest every day and get it maxed out as quickly as possible. Suda is probably the easiest one and one of the most impactful repairing your hull. One of the most impactful officers for you to be able to get. You can get him from your event store. He's part of the Officer Depot tokens. In terms of which bucket he's in the Section 31 and Voyager bundle here. So you can come in here, you can max him out, use your depot tokens. He is an absolutely key officer for you to max to be able to work in G7. Get him maxed, get him promoted, and get that 24% hull damage repair every single round onto your ships. In order to source Seska, a little bit more difficult, you're using the DTI faction store. So she's pulled from the Armada chests by doing the formation Armadas. So you're able to get, now the cooldown on these is pretty big and you're only getting 4 per chest. You want to be double pulling this as much as you can to be able to get the 8 shards of hair every single time. And also don't forget they also pay out little bits of reputation as well, the encrypted intelligence, which you can use towards your 9 trillion, your first part of the lock for the first part of the reputation to be able to unlock the independent miner. And then you've also got pulls here which have no tax, so it's 1 chest for 240, 2 for 480, 3 for 720. You can use your charged credits to be able to pull 3 shards of Seska, and this is what you absolutely should be doing with your charged credits. So you've got to go run your DTI formations, your DTI solos to feed into feeding Seska. Now don't get me wrong, this is an absolutely arduous process to spend these tokens to be able to actually get the shards. We have advocated for them adding a slider to this because there's no cooldown, there's no restrictions, there's no tax, there's no nothing, but you should be pulling these shards and getting them maxed and making sure that you're maintaining your shield on those hostiles, because even if you're keeping them, like my shields don't fall on the 71s, so you can see here that I'm not losing shield. This is because I'm repairing, this is because I'm getting that stability back in terms of shield. Had I lost that extra piece of shield, even more damage would have then been going to my hull. So it's so important that you keep that blue bar alive, and without having Seska there repairing some of my shield every single round, that would have gone a long time ago and I would have taken a hell of a lot more damage. So it's so important, okay, that you actually maintain your shields, which is why getting Seskas there is important. But even though I can do that against 71s, when we start looking at the 72s, when they're firing even more damage at us, it's going to be even more important for us to make sure that we are keeping and regenerating as much shield as possible. So if you're keeping it and you think, well, I've done that and Seska's at tier 4, you still need to get it to tier 5 to give yourself the best opportunity when it's time for you to start moving up. The other officers, obviously the Voyager ones, if you're entering G7, you do not want to be entering G7 if you're not in this position. If you don't have the likes of Harry Kim and if you don't have Harry Kim and Neelix and Balana Torres, if you haven't got them max, you are not ready to go into G7 yet. You need to get that done first. Okay, and obviously again, you can get those from your choice tokens. That's an important thing for you to do. One thing I will stress as well, while we're talking about officers, there are certain officers now which in G7 will not function for you. Now, this is an important thing for you when you're trying out your crews. And here they are. All these officers now do not work, okay, past 70. So you can see these are all the caps. So Lieutenant Picard doesn't work at anything after 35. You've got Kath Talan, Chen, and Talan themselves, obviously, that don't work past 51. You've got Tal that now doesn't work past 60, and then all of these have been added to not work past level 70. Now remember, this is the hostile that you're hitting. This is not your ops level. This is if you hit a hostile that is above that level where the officers will not function. It is nothing to do with your particular ops level. So Eurydice, Gala, McCoy, which obviously is original OG Bones, Harrison, Harry Mudd, both of them, Pike, Moreau, TNG Picard, the ability to boost officer abilities, okay, which is obviously what we've used Pike and Jean-Luc Picard for years, to boost officer abilities to get an extra edge in PvE and PvP and mission bosses, everything. We've used them to the absolute hilt. They now don't work once you get past level 70 hostiles. Okay, I'm now going to move into my final thoughts and my advice. My best advice for you is providing that you are comfortable with the additional grind, providing that you are comfortable with the additional grind and you've got the basics. Now, a couple of the basics are I want you to have a minimum of a tier 11/12 tier G6 epic or a vengeance. Okay, if you've got a vengeance that's tier 5 plus, that will about accommodate obviously a tier 11, tier 12 cruncher. G6 Epic. So you need to have that in place. That is an absolute must for you to be able to do it. And the good news is that there is no gate for you to access the G7 systems, so you can go and try and hit the hostiles in there to obviously see where you're at with things. So you can have a little bit of a play before you push the button. I don't want this to be totally unbearable for you. However, if you do not have that level of ship, if you don't have it, you may still be able to do your dailies, because you can do the small hostile daily in normal faction space, and you can still participate in your mining dailies. You might think cha-ching. However, there are events that are going to be calling for you hitting hostiles and things within the Veil. You will not survive in the Veil. You will not survive in the Veil if you are not at that tier. Now, there are going to be some exceptions. I've seen a tier 8 kill one, but basically max research, fantastic officers, etc., etc. It's so important. But my general advice is you're going to be wanting a minimum of a tier 11 G6 epic, okay, and decently scaled officers. That's the first thing that you need to be able to do. You need to have your crewing right. You want to be making sure that you're going in there, ideally with a max Suda, the max state officers, Kim, Neelix, and Torres. You want all of them done so that they're ready to go, so that you can move straight in there, so that you're not going to be losing your shields and you're getting the buffs and things from them. You want to be able to go for there. They're my bases. Next thing, why would you then make the jump? If you've got those, I think you are able to take one of two paths. The two paths, I say this about every single ops level in terms of generational jump. Your two options are you sit where you are until you have done everything and then move up. That's choice one. Neither of these are wrong. The other option, which is the route that I always go down and the one that I urge people to do, and I'll explain why, is to jump forward and then backfill. So providing you've hit those couple of prereqs that I've just mentioned before, jump forward and then backfill. Now when I say jump forward, I'm going to say jump to 71 and absolutely no further. You've just seen what a level 72 hostile does to me. If I have to start hitting 72s, my dailies are out completely because there's no 71s in any other systems. Sorry, no 72s in any other systems other than up in the new G7 margins and Veil space. So it's so important. So sit at 71 and catch up. When I say catch up, I don't think you should be moving past Ops 71 until you've got everything that you need to be able to go straight to Ops 73 and be able to build the ship. That's a long time. People are going to be sat at 71, if they take my advice, like me, for a long, long time, because you're going to want the independent miner. And remember I showed you how much it was going to cost you to be able to get a G7 uncommon ship. It's going to take you so long to be able to get those faction credits. You're going to sit at 71 for a long time. That is not a bad thing. Okay, that is not a bad thing. When we take a look, okay, I'm now going to really quickly show you how the loyalty chest changes happen. Okay, so loyalty chest changes. Now, this is also very, very similar to choice rewards. So the choice rewards that you get from your battle pass every month that you're able to swap out. The sourcing for G6 materials, once you hit 71, is exponential. This happened exactly the same for when you went from G5 to G6, G4 to G5, exactly the same. The myth of, well, when I move up a generation, I'm going to stop getting the stuff for the previous generation is absolute tosh. It's rubbish. It's wrong. Okay? Not true. Your scaling of your previous generation materials when you move up a generation is exponential. Okay, and let me just quickly pull up the ops progression sheet and I will show you what I mean. So the 7-day chest works pretty much exactly the same, but I'm going to focus on the 30-day chest, obviously, to illustrate this point. Okay, so look down here. So this is the sourcing for G6 materials down here. So you can see on the left-hand side, G6 materials comes across here. It's these boxes here. And I'm going to make it bigger so that everybody can see. I was just showing you exactly what I was actually looking at. So if you come across to the right here, you can see that this is the G6. This bit I've highlighted here is the G6 resources, materials that are paid out from your 30-day chest. And you can see this This is what you get at the upper echelons of G6. This is what you get for it in G7. So you've got common, uncommon, and rare. So you're getting, now remember these are base numbers again. So when you're looking in your chest, you'll say, well, mine's miles higher than that. It's because, as it mentions here, you are being boosted by Syndicate. This was that tree, that research in essence that was in the Syndicate that I was talking about with the bonus loyalty chest loot, okay, and how much it increases. And it goes up at all these different stages that I mentioned. So these are the base amounts. And I'll show you mine in a second. So you can see here that I'm going from op 70. If I sat there, I would be getting 50 G6 uncommon every single 30-day period, 28-day period, because obviously it only takes 28 days for you to be able to get it. At base, the base number is going from 50 to 1700. The rares are going from 20 to 225. That's easy numbers. It's just over 11x in terms of the materials that you're going to be able to pull. What that's going to do for you, and then let me show you mine. So it was 1700 for each uncommon in G6. I'm getting nearly 41,000. 41,000 of each uncommon G6 material. 5,400 of each rare. You as an op 68, 69, 70, how much does that help your game? How much does one of these chests help your game? Ask yourself that question. It's massive. There is one more thing to note on this as well, and that is when you move into G7, there is now a cooldown on these chests. So pay particular attention to this section. There is a cooldown now on the 30-day chest. There has always been one on the 7-day chest. So the 7-day chest, you've always been able to pull, in theory, 28 tokens, so 4 batches. However, you can pull 35 at a time. If you pull a 2 chest, then a 1 chest, and then a 2 chest, that will then start your cooldown timer of a week. And the 30-day chest was always pull as many as you like. However, now, once you pull the chest at all, whether that be 1 chest or 2 chests, there will then be a 30-day cooldown. It's huge, it's a big addition, and you need to factor this in. So the reason I'm telling you this is because you do not want to be, based on current gameplay, if you're watching this in the future, bear in mind we're only a week in, check before you act on this advice. If that cooldown has been removed, ignore this next 30 seconds of spiel that I'm going to give you. If that cooldown is still in place, then before you push the button to go up 71, you need to spend down as many of your allegiance tokens as you're comfortable with. I would keep yourself a bank, I don't know, maybe 8, 10, 12, something like that. Just keep a few. If you're sat there with tens and tens of these things, you are never going to spend them. Bearing in mind you're going to be earning 4 every 28 days. You're never going to spend them if you've got a huge bank of them. So you might consider, even though you're going to be getting less for them, you might as well spend them and get something before you move to 71 and then are inflicted by the cooldown. This is an important thing to note and a really key piece of planning prior to you pushing the button to 71. So I'm making this point because if you have, and you have the ability to be able to do your dailies, and you have the patience to be able to do your dailies, you jump up to 71 and then you use 71 as your strategic stopping point. You're going to sit there, you're going to get these buckets and buckets of G6 materials. You're going to use those to max out your Crenshaw, max out your Enterprise E, whichever G6 epic you decided to go for, which then allows you to then be able to max out your Borg Cube. It allows you to go and remember those absolutely heinous numbers that we need of researches that I need to do, the heinous amount of Sigma speed ups that I need to spend to be able to get it. So we use this period whilst we're sat at 71 to get all those extra materials, to work on the researches, to bump up our ships, to get everything that we need to do done as a part of G6 so much faster. If you sit at 70 and get yourself ready so that when you go to G6, G6 is easy, okay, it will take you so much longer than moving to 71, suffering a little bit of pain, okay, and it is a little bit of a pain. It takes time, it takes effort, it takes commitment for you to be able to do the 71 dailies if you are not completely up to date with all of your research and everything like that you need to be. But you will get caught up and you will be ready to move on so much faster by going to 71 and catching up at that point. Be aware, things like your auction events, they are going to increase in spend. It's going to be harder for you to be able to complete in solo leaderboards. Technically not at the moment, because solo leaderboards have got no G7 players in them. But if you're watching this in 2023, 2026, okay, when you're thinking about making the jump, your leaderboards will then be stacked potentially full of G7 players. Okay, so maybe not quite relevant, but even your SMS events, okay, the SMS spend events, at the moment we've got the Chronicle of the Ascendant meta events up, and the actual SMS events are massive for you to be able to spend materials on, and you don't have, remember, at 71, very much ability to spend G7 materials, so you're doing it with G6, so you need buckets of it. Luckily, you're getting buckets of it from all of those different sources. So then my advice to you then is to sit at 71, do everything I've just told you, and then use Spock's Club to then be able to make that decision on when you are ready, when you've got everything that you need, operations, until you are then to go to 73. In fact, it's not even operations. So you are ready to go to shipyard 73 and build your 73 ship, which will then have, look at all this stuff you need. 5 million common. 500, 500,000 uncommon. 641,000 uncommon gas. 386,000 uncommon crystal. Imagine if you jump up to 71 when you think you're ready, but you've not spent a few months sat at 71 starting to acquire these G7 materials. Imagine sat at 70 waiting to then jump to 71 and then having to start grinding out 750,000 faction credits just to be able to get an independent miner, because you haven't spent a few months sat at 71 doing the catch-up ready and starting to acquire these vital, very, very sparse resources. The economy will get better. Remember, we are talking about the economy here 1 week in to it's actually being launched. The economy will get better. Researches will be added. Efficiencies will be added. Costs will be lowered using all of those tools and researches and skins and blah, blah, blah. Everything that we've seen to every other generation of the game. In day one today, if you want to make any progress in G7, you absolutely need to sit at 71, get caught up, and get ready for that big jump all the way up to 73. I hope you found this useful. I've gone through a hell of a lot there. It's your game. You play the game exactly how you want to play it. Okay, you play the game how you want to play it. Remember I mentioned that the other bridge ship was also the Vengeance. The Vengeance sourcing has improved. Since the Vengeance launched a couple of months ago, I got no blueprints. The spend event this month, okay, the milestones were a little bit easier, made better. I've now got 120 blueprints in a week. I've got more in the last week than I've got in the last 3 months of the Vengeance being out. So Vengeance sourcing, if you can get that and start working on that, then absolutely that's going to make your transition into G7 a whole lot easier. I hope you found this useful. I'm sorry it was longer than normal, but there was so much to cover. Please leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think. Any other advice that you would give to anybody wanting to participate, or on my advice, of course, please drop that down in the comments. I'd love to listen to them, obviously respond to your comments and everything. Like the video, check out itslube.com where you can find all of our content. Have a wonderful day, everybody, and remember that absolutely everything is better with lube. Are you ready to go to G7? Tell me in the comments. Bye for now, guys.